Alright, so stat test, and then go to A. One prop Z interval, I got 25 out of 40. 0.99. So 0.428 to 0.822. You guys agree? So for the width, it's just like subtract those two. How far is it from one endpoint to the other? So 0.394. Your point estimate comes from our data, so that's 25 out of 40, which is 0.625. Margin of error you can do two ways, so Bud just brought up another way. So the margin of error is going to be half of this distance, so you can cut this number in half, or you could do like this number minus the middle, so you've really got like 0.428, 0.625 in the middle, and then 0.822. So the whole thing is the width, and then like that's your margin of error, and so is that. So you can subtract these two, or you can take that width and just cut it in half. So all of those are valid methods. So this is 0.197. And then rewriting this is like 0.625 plus or minus 0.197. You add 0.197 to get to there, and you subtract 0.197 to get to there. So there's your plus minus notation for part E. Okay, okay, I'll find this. Question? Alright, so if I want a 90%, so if my confidence interval goes down, what happens to my interval? It shrinks. It's way easier to think of if it goes up. If I need to be more confident, I need to have like all the numbers in the world to make sure that correct answers in there somewhere. So if I need to be less confident, I can narrow it. And then if I have more data, then my standard deviation decreases, and the width of the interval would decrease also. Question on that, anyone? Alright, let's take a look at the sheet I just gave you. This is probably like the most math that we do in here all year. Like everyone thinks it's an AP math class. It's probably the hardest math that we do. It's not that bad, it's just the hardest that we do. Okay, so in your general formula we do, you have like your statistic plus or minus the critical value times the standard deviation. The plus or minus part is the margin of error. So if your point estimate, you add or subtract the margin of error, and you go like that far in both directions. But this piece here, part after the plus minus, is the margin of error. It's like how much wiggle room you have on each side of your main data point. So what I have here is like margin. You're not going to end up writing all these steps every time, but I'm going to write them out the first time just so you can kind of see what happens. So they're telling me the margin of error is 0.03%. So the margin of error is the critical value times the standard deviation. And that equals 0.03. So your critical value, Z star, standard deviation, square root of PQ over N, That's a bar. So how do I find C star? Inverse norm 1.95 divided by 2. Good. So that is 1.96 times the square. I'm just going up to it over here. The square root of P is 0.57. So what's Q? 0.43, right? Because what has to be true about these two numbers? That down to 1. And then N is what I don't know. That's what I'm looking for. And all that equals 0.03. So there's our equation. We got to solve for N. So I'm going to do, it's not that bad. The hard part is you really want to do it all in your calculator, because rounding by a little bit, like, then you square it, divide by things. But if you round it, like, the error gets bigger and bigger. So you really want to try to do this all in your calculator. So I'm going to divide by 1.96. Everything. At the same time, I'm going to figure out what 0.57 times 0.43 is. 0.2451 over N equals. But I'm not going to type in 0.03 divided by 1.96, because that's rounding it a little bit. I'm going to type in, and I'm just going to leave it. Basically. So, okay, so I'm going to go 0.03 divided by the inverse norm of 1.95. So I'm going to write down 0.0153, but I'm not going to like remove that from my calculator. This is a little more accurate than dividing by 1.96, because you round it to get to 1.96, right? This is not rounding, so you just do it 0.03 divided by that. Just leave it there. If I want to get the N out of that square root, what's the next thing I have to do? Square both sides. So on this side, I just get 0.2451 over N. And then now, because I have that, I'm not going to put like 0.0153 squared. I'm just going to hit square. And it's going to take my previous answer, not round it. It's going to keep all those decimals in there, and it's going to square it. Freak out, it's got that D in there. Remember what that means? You move the decimal place 4 places, switch direction to the left. And again, it doesn't, I'm not going to like, I don't care what you write down, because you're going to try to do the whole calculator, whole problem in your calculator. And if you were to write this down, it would be 0.000234. But more importantly, I'm just going to leave it there. And then, how are we doing? Right? Because with me lost, thumbs up, thumbs down, sideways, give me like a clue. Okay. So from there, I want to show you a little trick that you guys probably know, but you like don't realize you know. So if I have like 12 over x equals 2, what's the answer to that? 6, right? Well, if you notice, if I just exchanged these two things, doesn't that also tell me x equals 6? So in this setup, the way you have it set up here, you're allowed to just like trade those spots. It'll still work. You know, like just convince you like 50 divided by 1 equals 5. 10? Well, if I just exchange those, wouldn't it tell me 50 divided by 5? So that's 10. So I'm going to exchange these two. So then N is going to equal 0.2451 divided by that like really small decimal. And I don't, again, I'm writing it just so I like know what's there. I really want to do the whole thing in my calculator. So if you're still with me, we had this 0.2451 and we want to divide it by that really small number. So I'm going to do 0.2451 divided by second. If you hit second negative sign, it'll grab your previous answer, not round it, keep all the decimals in there, That's all right. 1046.1. Now I'm gonna do another one of these because I know I'm talking too much stuff. It's getting like more and more stuff to remember. But if I need, it's a minimum sample size. I need at least that many in my sample. So how many do I really need? Because I can't ask 1046.1 people. So I really need 1047. But typically these are multiple choice, and the answers will be like pretty far apart from each other, so you can kind of tell. But I feel like I should do another one. So let me do. No, that's fine. Should you wait a second first? All right, yeah. Yeah. So questions. I'm gonna wait. Oh, that's fun. It's actually fun. Yeah, yeah. Right. You guys think everyone's face looks weird? I was here yesterday, so like none of you look like what I expected you to look like. Like some of you have had for 2 years. So all right, let's do number 2. So are there questions on 1 before I move on to do 2? All right. So like I said, like you could write this stuff out, and I'm gonna do it again. But really, I think most of you probably won't write those top 2. You'll just gotta jump to here and then start plugging in. But for the sake of like explaining it, so again, I want a margin of error of 0.03. The margin of error is the critical value times the standard deviation. My critical value is Z star. My standard deviation is the square root of PQ over N. I'll go over there and start doing the actual equation. So I wouldn't hurt to write that down just to kind of get used to like, okay, what's margin of error? Oh, well, it's critical value times standard deviation. What's critical value? Oh, it's Z star. What's standard deviation? Like it just kind of helps reinforce. I'm not going to make you do that. And then again, how do I find Z star? Inverse norm of 1 point, in this case 1.99 divided by 2. So I get 2.558. What you're writing down shouldn't matter. Never, if you're doing this right, you're never going to take what you wrote down and put it in the calculator, because you're going to make the calculator do the whole thing. Times the square root of 0.57 and 0.43, and then N is what we're looking for, and that's still 0.03 on the other side. So what's next? Divide by the 2.58, right? And I'm also gonna like multiply these two together. So 0.5, no, it's the same as last one. So 0.57 times 0.43 is 0.2451 over N. And equals 0.03 divided by inverse norm 1.99 divided by 2. I'm not even gonna write down what it is. I'm gonna do it though. Okay, yeah, I guess I will write down. It's like 0.0116. Then whatever it is, what's the next thing I'm going to do to both sides? I'm going to square it, because I got to get this N out from under the square root. I'm going to square that, and I'm going to square that. I'm going to square the left-hand side, and square the square root, just wipe each other out. then, so what I'm doing in here is this is my 0.03 divided by inverse norm of 1.99 divided by 2. And I'm just going to hit to the second. So it's going to take that previous answer that I had in there, not round it at all, leave everything in as precise as it can be, and square it. So you probably get this E thing in most of these problems. Doesn't really matter. You don't really have to write it down, but if I were going to write it down, it would be 0.000136. And then these two are going to trade spots. So you're going to end up with 0.2451 divided by that number that is in your calculator. So I'm going to do 0.2451 divided by second negative sign, which just grabs the previous answer. And I get 1806.9. I can't ask 1086.9 people, so I have to ask 1807. Yeah. So how can I help? What can I go through again? You still see something? Are you good? Kind of hard to show both. How many had that before me? Like you were working on it and just kind of waiting. Okay. Questions on how many got to eventually? Okay. Questions on it? Try number 3. Yeah, there is no number 3. It's like try number 4. TJP stats. I'm still working on that counting. So it's going to be 2, 3, 5, 4 is your answer. Once you get used to it, it's just like the same buttons over and over again in your calculator. Some of you will get to the point where you don't even really need to write anything down. You can just type it in. So these are the type of questions that were in that con yesterday, right? That you couldn't send, that you couldn't get to. So there's like the work if you wanted to see it written out. You can't do number 5 yet. Don't worry about 5. Yeah. Don't try 5. You don't know. It's 2, 4, 5, 1. Maybe I look it up. It might be enough to. You're like really close. See if that doesn't. If you didn't get it, let me know. So I can, yeah. Okay, so at the end of the day, like that doesn't really matter. You're fine. But here, this is why. So because you, instead of doing it in that nature to the second, so it just makes it like a little bit off. But really, on a multiple choice, that'd be the closest answer anyway. So you'd be okay. Try 6. Oh wait, no, we gotta talk about 6 for 1 second. So sometimes you don't know what you had. Like if I'm gonna do a survey, I don't necessarily know the results beforehand. I still want to figure out how many people I'm supposed to ask to get this certain confidence level, but I don't know the results. Like if I said 1% of people are going to vote for whoever, I don't know the answer before the survey. That's kind of the point of doing the survey. So if you don't know, you take what's exactly in the middle. If they don't tell you what p hat is, you assume it's 0.5. If you don't know the p hat, they don't tell you, which they won't like a decent amount of the time. You just pick 0.5 because it's right in the middle of 0 and 1. It's like the least likely to have a giant error. Try number 6 with that in mind. Skip 5. You said you're over 12. There you go. So where? So let me do it. So that is this number. Well, the next thing I would do would be square both sides. So that's square. That's this. And then like these are the spots. So you want to take that on the screen and divide it into a second. Did the con have like if n goes up by 2, the width goes down by like a fourth, like that type of thing?
It gives n values. So like 800, that same size reduces to 400. And
So it says like what happens to the width of the interval.
I got it.
Maybe. You had your chance already. Passed. Just So then your next step would be divided by 1.6. So a couple of you, I don't know if you're just writing it weird or you don't realize, but that n is under the square root. So just make sure you realize that. Like it's a big square root over the whole fraction. Something like that, really. So then I'm not gonna like worry about that. How about you look up 0.0495? Previous answer. That's not wrong. All those decimals. You can write that down. It's really just like a place of yeah, so what you have right now is those are gone, right? So what do I have? So that's up to that. Point two. So write down 0.25 over n. The square root over all. It's still in the square root. There. Your squaring is our next step, but we haven't done anything. Equals. Then so then you're right, the next thing we're gonna do is square. Square that side. Square that side. So just say it like to the second. So you can write that out and all that even.
Right, how do you know?
Flip flop those, the n and that number. So what you want to do is 0.25 divided by that. So 0.25 divided by that. That's what you want. What else? Can I just do it up here? Oh, that I'll go. So what's
Okay, I got it.
He makes a lot of money.
So let me just do this one real quick to complete the lesson here. You would have, this is like inverse norm, 1.9 divided by 2 times 0.5 minus 0.5 over n equals 0.04. And then you would divide both sides by the inverse norm, 1.9 divided by 2. So I'll get like the square root of 0.25 over n equals 0.0243. Then I would square both sides. writing this down, but really I'm just doing the whole thing with my calculator. And then I'm gonna flip flop these two. So my calculator I end up just doing 0.25 divided by answer. So I get 422.7, which means how many people do I need to ask? 423. Yeah.
So you said the AP stats test when we do that. I know that we have to do the C's, like write that all out. And we also said for this, we'll get good enough eventually to not write a lot out. We're gonna have to write everything out for the stat test.
For my test or the AP test?
AP test.
If it's multiple choice, no. And if it's true response, yes. I mean, that's kind of a general answer for everything. But even for that, like, you wouldn't need to write as much as we did.